So today we're going to talk about Google search and how Google is monetizing search and the impact this is having on organic traffic. The idea for this presentation really came out of a conversation that I'm having over and over again with Magento merchants. The search traffic that they're seeing is oftentimes flatlining or declining. And the question is why? And so I want to take you through an explanation of that. All right, so I've already been introduced. We'll try to move quick through some of this stuff. I know we're quite behind. The business that we run is we engage in ad management for mid-sized Magento merchants primarily. We end up working with all aspects of paid search. Also things like Google Tag Manager implementations, shopping feeds, all that sort of stuff, conversion tracking, and also managing the search ads themselves, bidding issues, and the financial aspects of that. So I want to take you through a little overview of what Google's done over the last 2 decades as they've tried to shift organic traffic to paid traffic so they can generate revenue. I want to then look at a few things about the search patterns in individual merchants and maybe show you just a few things that if you're curious about what's going on, a few reports you can dig into and get an idea of what's going on for your company. And then also just look at what I think are some implications, what we all need to do based on this, because we're not living at the end of history. These trends are continuing, and in the future, it's going to get even more interesting. So in 1998, this is what Google looked like. I know quite a few of us were around then. It wasn't that sophisticated. We just had organic search results. We didn't have a lot of fancy terminology. We didn't do a lot of SEO. We didn't have paid ads. Google had a big problem. The big problem is, how do we monetize this? How do we turn this into a business? What's our business model? A couple years later, they took their first stab at it. Those horrible little ads over on the right-hand side of the screen. They were completely irrelevant. People didn't click on them. The bidding mechanisms weren't that great. And the key problem is that when a user goes to Google, they're searching for an answer to a question. And those ads didn't answer those questions. So Google really had to figure out, what can we engineer so those ad results are a better answer to a user question than the organic results. So users will have a better experience when they click on those ads. That's the only way we can build our business. Fast forward to today, and the ads are incredibly rich. There's a lot of information. We've got product reviews, seller reviews. We've got the location of a business. We've got images of the products we're selling. All sorts of things have been added to ads to improve the user experience and to make it so those ads more fully answer the user query. They provide a lot more information. They're a lot better user interface. Google's also done a lot of things with advertising policies. So all of the things that people hated about those early ads, they just started chipping away at those with policies. You can't advertise this. You can't engage in this sort of practice. You can't state this in an ad. You can't infringe on other people's trademarks. We don't want you advertising firearms because some people find that offensive. Let's chip away at all the other offensive things. But as they did that, what they did is they really improved, again, that matching behind what the user was searching for and what they were finding and making those ads more relevant to them. Quality Score is another major system they implemented. Quality Score has hundreds of signals. It's hundreds of components that Google uses to determine if your ad is going to rank highly or not. If you get a higher quality score, you can kind of capture the value of that 2 different ways. It's either going to push your ads up higher in the listings, or you could kind of maintain your given level in the listings but lower your cost. Basically, it just gives you a cost advantage when you're bidding in the auctions. It's a massively important lever that you have control over. And it's mostly influenced by 3 things: ad relevance, click-through rate, and landing page. We know click-through rate is the most important factor, and that should make sense because Google charges when people click on ads. So that's the key revenue driver for their business model. So all of these things taken together has just resulted in an interesting survival of the fittest scenario, where ads that are less relevant drop down in the rankings, or people have to spend more money to list at the top of the screen. E-commerce sites that are less effective at converting users they pay for more clicks that don't result in a sale, and they can't afford to stay in. So they have a lot of problems and they drop out of the listings. But the businesses that understand the tools that they can work with here and continue to iterate and improve their ads, improve their bidding, and improve their websites are rising to the top, dominating the top positions and locking everybody else out. Now, contrast that with what's gone on with organic listings in the last 20 years. They basically look like they did around the year 2000. Google's done all sorts of innovation about many aspects of search, but they've conspicuously not innovated quite as much with normal organic listings. In fact, there's a lot of features that originated on organic listings, then they implemented them on ad results, and then later on took them off of organic listings. So organic listings are just simple, they're not rich, they're smaller than ads by a lot now, and they're pushed far down the page. So this is what we see today. We see, for e-commerce searches, a very rich display of information. Almost all of it is ads. Almost nobody scrolls down and clicks on the organic listings. They don't need to. The ads answer their query far better than the organic results do. And that's what Google's revenue looks like as a result of this system. When I say that we're not at the end of history and these trends are going to continue, I think about this. They have intense pressure to continue growing their business revenue. Third quarter profits this year, they just recently announced $9 billion in profits, $9.5 billion in profits for the third quarter of this year. They've got to push these numbers up. There's intense pressure to do that. The number of searchers on the internet is not growing at this rate. The way they're going to continue pushing their revenue is continuing putting systems in place so people are incentivized to click on ads instead of organic listings. Let's talk a little bit about how to understand a few things about your own search patterns. I know there's a lot of SEO tools out there that can help, but I want to focus on just a few things that are fairly freely available and widespread, so no proprietary tools here. The first one is just Google Trends. If you don't get in here and look at some of the keyword data, you should play around with this. It can give you a lot of insights into your industry. But Google Trends is just a way to actually look at what people are actually searching for. When you look at your own analytics reports, you're seeing which people clicked through to your website, and you don't get a rich picture of all the other people who didn't click through to your website. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. On the top, we're looking at a search trend for a given keyword that's very representative of a business, a certain business. And over time, you can see that the number of people searching for this term is rising. It's rising fairly predictably. There's some seasonality in the data, but there's a good, strong upward trend. On the bottom is what they're seeing in the organic traffic that their site receives. And you can see that it sort of started to flatline a couple of years ago, and maybe now it's starting to dip down a little bit. It's certainly not following the trend of the number of searches. That's because Google's pushing a lot of those people to click on paid ads, so it's not showing up in the organic traffic anymore. So another report that's really useful is the Google Paid and Organic report. It's in Google Ads. I'm surprised a lot of people don't know about this report. It can be really interesting and useful. You can filter the report via different ways, sort of scope the data. And there's a lot of fields you can look at, and it basically tells you statistics about what happens on a search engine result page when there's just organic results, when there's just ads, or when there's a mix of both. So in this example, here's a company's brand term. This is actually the company's name. It's a distinct name. People wouldn't confuse this for anything else. And when only an organic listing shows up on the search engine result page, they're getting a 33% click-through rate. So 2/3 of the people searching for the company's name are not clicking on one of their organic listings. Maybe a few of those are clicking over to Google Maps or something else, but a whole lot of people are clicking on their competitor ads when their ads don't show. Contrast that with what happens when they show an ad on their own branded term. Now we go up to basically 75% of the clicks they capture. But it is important to note there's definitely some cannibalization occurring where the paid ads are pulling clicks away from the organic listings. They're definitely paying for some clicks that they were getting for free, but they're getting far more clicks. We see this pattern over and over and over again. When I'm talking about advertising on brand terms, this is something that's happening a lot. A few years ago, it wasn't that big a deal. Now it's everywhere. So I was Googling Algolia when I was at Magento Imagine. I was walking by their booth and I wanted to look at a little background information about them before I talked to them. And their competitor ad for Nextopia came up on Algolia when I typed in Algolia on my phone. And I thought it was a really good example of how to engage in competitive advertising on the Google search results. The Algolia ad is a very generic ad. It talks about search in general. The Nextopia ad added some additional things that might appeal to certain people to stake out a slightly different position. They talk about online stores. They talk about conversion rates. Their ad is more e-commerce focused. And so that was immediately noticeable. And you can see how in scenarios like this sort of competitive advertising with slightly different positioning is going to result in some of the people looking for a company that had a high purchase intent right there at the end of the funnel going off to a competitor because they saw a couple things that resonated with them and it distracted them from what they were going to do anyway. Another great report is auction insight reports. And there's no single place to go to this report in Google Ads. It's actually scattered all over the place because you can look at it at different scopes. You can look at the report across your entire account or individual campaigns, even down to a keyword level. Auction Insight Report is great because for whatever scope you're looking at, you can get in here and look at how your company's ads are performing against other companies' ads, basically who's ranking in the auctions, who's getting listed. It's a great way to actually look at who's advertising against you on your own branded terms if you want to think about how to return the favor. So this is kind of the holy grail, you know. We don't see any competitor ads on this Home Depot page. Home Depot's put a lot of work into SEO. They've done everything they can to dominate the organic listings. They've also really worked on their ads, turned on all of the optional features that can be enabled on their ads to make them as rich as possible. So you can see I'm doing a search in California and it's telling me about a store that's nearby. All that sort of stuff is right there. But since their ad is so dominant, everything's turned on, and it's got such a high quality score for this search, most people click on that ad. What they've done is they've effectively driven their competitors off their own brand terms. So I want to wrap up with just 5 key points to think about for growing your search traffic, maintaining your search presence, and hopefully making it even better than it's been in the past. Number 1 is just advertise on your brand terms. It amazes me how many e-commerce merchants still don't want to advertise on their own company terms because they think they're going to get that traffic for free. There is no such thing as a brand term in the real world. A brand term is just somebody looking for your company because they're about to make a purchase, and that is a juicy target for somebody else. It's not different than any other keyword. I mean, it's different, I guess, in the sense that you have an advantage. You're going to be able to bid at you're going to have a quality score advantage, so your bids are going to be way lower than your competitors, and you're going to have much higher conversion rates, but you got to jump in there and really push these. And also, advertising on top organic results. Again, if you don't, your competitors will. It's better to stake out a claim there. Your competitors probably already are advertising on your top organic terms. One thing to think about, if you think that you don't have competition on those search engine result pages, run some ads at a low level so you can pull that data into AdWords and look at the auction insights reports and get an idea of what competitors are actually listed against you. You might be surprised about what's going on. When you're searching for your own terms, Google can detect that you're not interested in other people's ads, and they might not show you ads that they are showing to your customers. So advertise on competitor brand terms. This is a juicy target, but you have to be honest with yourself. When you place ads against other people's brand keywords, you need to actually say, what are my company's real competitive advantages in the eyes of both of our mutual potential customers? You can't have just generic, fluffy marketing speak talking about how great you are. You have to think about real competitive advantages to somebody who's going to that other site right now to place an order. So focus on those competitive advantages. Think about what Nextopia was doing in that example. Control your costs. This is really about buying fewer irrelevant clicks. If you're just turning on advertising and not doing a lot of tuning, you're buying a lot of irrelevant clicks that aren't converting on your site. In order to dominate the search results, you have to actually be able to increase what you're spending. In order to do that, you need a higher conversion rate. You need more revenue coming in per click that you're buying so you can spend more per click and outbid competitors. Obviously, all the optimizations around quality score are tied up in this as well. When you have a really relevant ad and you've really tuned and eliminated all the things that aren't going to turn into converting traffic, you're going to get a better quality score and your costs are actually going to go down. Finally, the point of all of this is Google has engineered a system where ads are becoming more relevant than organic. The transition hasn't happened for every merchant in every industry yet, but we are right in the middle of that cutover. Make sure your ads are far more relevant to the searcher intent on the keywords you're advertising for than any of the organic listings. Look at the organic listings on those search engine result pages and think about what people are looking for and what answers they're getting. Think about how to integrate that into your ads so your ads are the best answer. It's that simple. So, the payoff. Just going back to that example from Google Trends for a particular company. I took the same data we had before that showed their organic traffic going flat and starting to decline a little bit, and I put another layer on top of that showing what their paid search traffic is. And you can see that when you add their paid and organic together, the proportions are clearly changing. More and more is shifting over to paid, but in aggregate, they're actually growing faster than the trend for searches against the products in their industry. And this is really the answer to where is your organic traffic going. It's going to companies that are being aggressive on paid. Google's incentivized them to do it. When they made this commitment a few years ago, they started seeing dramatic results, and this is where an awful lot of the business growth is coming from now. This is what you have to master, and if you think about it, paid optimization really is that new SEO. As Google continues to funnel this traffic from organic to paid, understanding the financial aspects and the mechanisms that you can tune paid advertising by, that is the new SEO. Hence the title, Paid is the New Organic. So I think we probably have time for a couple of questions. I want to point out that we write some interesting blog posts about some of these topics, and if you were interested in some of those reports and a little bit more in-depth, deep dive into how to pull them and to think about some of these issues, there's some blog posts at cyberware.com/blog that you might want to consider, and I'll be around the rest of the conference as well to chat with anybody who'd like to. So, are there any questions? Oh, there's somebody way out there. Hey.
When you're comparing SEO and paid, ultimately you have to come to some sort of attribution for your effort so you can arrive at allocation for your budget.
Yep.
How do you do that, especially given some sales happening perhaps not on the website?
Wow, that sounds okay. So he was asking a question of when you're engaging in organic and paid search, how do you actually deal with attribution models to really understand where your traffic, where your revenue is coming from, so you can make appropriate balances between what you're spending and what you're bringing in? And that sounds exactly like the kind of question that we're not going to really squeeze in, but I would say the simple answer is. The simple answer is really there's no simple answer. There's a whole lot of differences in different businesses. When you're dealing with phone orders, for example, we've actually run into, there's techniques you can use to find out what's going on with phone orders and integrate those back into your bidding models in paid ads. When you're dealing with attribution models, there's obviously a lot of ways you can configure attribution models depending on what's actually happening for your business. But since there's so much variability between different businesses and what that sort of that purchase journey is for a buyer, it really involves trying to understand that and then fit the best attribution model you can on top of that. And it's never going to be perfect. And there's still some reasonable arguments that you shouldn't use attribution models beyond last click, because at least with last click, you always know what's being measured, right? It depends. It depends on a lot of factors. So, do we have time for another question, maybe? Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Many of our terms we get outbid by Amazon. What's your take on what Google's going to do or may do with Amazon bids?
So Amazon is probably the largest advertiser on Google. And if you think about being outbid by Amazon, a strategy that a lot of merchants are engaged in is just making sure that when Amazon is outbidding them, their products are on Amazon, so they're actually making that sale one way or the other. Obviously, you can only do that with certain products. It depends on how specific the search intent is and so on. But otherwise, I mean, Amazon is just one other person bidding in those auctions. There's still quite a few slots available. And they are not really engaged in highly optimized advertising. They are blowing out ads just out of a fire hose all over the internet. If you actually look at the text those ads come up with, a lot of times the ad text is not very good. It's not very tailored to what the searcher intent is. And if you think about it, they can't have high quality scores on those. They really can't. You actually have a serious advantage in the auctions if you engage in some more optimization and tuning of your ads. If you actually put the work in. They can't do it. They can't keep up with that. All right, so yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody more about this. I'll be here the rest of the event. And I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you.